whatever. So let's get right into it. In a first step, the EU put together a group of experts with the task of working out a list of proposals how to do this. These laws and regulations will be called the EU Taxonomy rules. The experts have recently released their suggestions, and this video will cover the most important points. The recommendations will be discussed by the EU Parliament and Commission in December of 2020, so some details might be subject to change. However, we can expect that these proposals will basically go into effect as they stand now. The expert commission defines what constitutes a sustainable activity. For that, they defined a list of 6 categories. If a company works in one of those fields, it is at least partially considered to be sustainable. And of course, investments in these companies are also considered to be sustainable. 2 of these 6 categories are more important than the other ones, and these are climate change mitigation and adaptation. To fight climate change as soon as possible, the EU taxonomy rules for these 2 categories will go into law sooner than for the other categories. So, if a company works in one of those 6 fields, it's automatically considered to be sustainable? Well, not exactly. For that, the experts have defined the DNSH category, which means do no significant harm. This means that an activity must not have negative effects on one of the other categories and needs to follow basic standards, like human rights, etc., or it won't be considered as sustainable. So, after having defined what constitutes a sustainable activity, the next question is how to promote investments in those fields, which is the main point of the EU taxonomy rules. On the industry side, there will be new rules considering reporting, because if a company does not report certain facts and figures, an investor won't be able to evaluate to what degree it's acting in a sustainable manner. All medium and big-sized companies will have to include a description of how and to what extent their activities are associated with the taxonomy-aligned categories. This will include reporting on their turnover, CAPEX and OPEX, and how much in percentage of the turnover goes into activities that contribute to climate change mitigation or adaptation. As you can imagine, like that it will be easy for a potential investor to assess whether a company is sustainable or not. Furthermore, corporations might be eligible to EU green bonds, which will mean relatively cheap money for the company. Now this might sound really technical to you. So, to illustrate this, here's an example. Imagine a cement company which wants to renovate 2 of its plants which contribute more than 50% of its turnover. With this renovation, the plants will become much more energy efficient, amongst some other ecological advantages. Therefore, this will contribute to the goal of climate change mitigation. If the company meets the human rights standards and the activities do not harm the other 4 goals, it can raise money for the renovation through the EU Green Bonds program. Now, in the reporting of that year, the company will also be able to report that the overwhelming percentage of its CAPEX goes into climate change mitigation/adaptation and is therefore sustainable. Furthermore, the company will be able to report that the turnover generated from those 2 plants is taxonomy aligned. As the plants make up more than 50% of the turnover, the company can at least partially be considered as sustainable investment. Which leads us to the investor side. Financial companies which offer quote mode sustainable and quote mode products are subject to further disclosures as well, especially financial products which have a sustainable investment as their objective and financial products which promote environmental or social characteristics of the investment. For each such product a financial company offers, they must state how and to what extent they have used the taxonomy in determining the sustainability of the investment, to what environmental objectives the investment contributes, and the proportion of underlying investments that are taxonomy aligned expressed as percentage of the investment fund or portfolio. The European Commission is planning to introduce eco-labels which can be applied to these investments depending on how well they do in the mentioned criteria. So, if an investment contributes to all 6 goals, it's probably much more likely to get the eco-label, Or it might get the better one than other investments, which only contribute to one or two goals. The details on those eco-labels are yet